Welcome back. This is Mr. Soto, and this is the second video in the retirement project series. Okay, in this video, I'd like to be able to use the information we had before to create a table of values. From that table of values, create a graph like you did once before, and finally, edit that graph. So let's go ahead and get started. So here's where we left off last time. I'm make a slight change. Right here where it says interest rate, I'm going to do 3%. And what I like to be able to do now is create a table of values where maybe I start in 1995 and then go up by 5 years all the way to 2000 something, 2050, 2060, depending how far you want to go. But I don't want to type this in. This can take me a while. So there is a better way. Excel can do calculations, so let's use the power of Excel. I want, instead of having to type this up, let me go ahead and delete this. Can I tell Excel to give me an equation for this? Or can I tell Excel the equation so it can do the math for me? So I'm going to start with the equals because I want a formula. And I want it to take this number up here in B11. And I want Excel to add 5 to that number. And so all I have to do is type B11 plus 5. And sure enough, it gives me 2000. Now it'd be nice if I can just drag this down. This is the copy function, drag this down, and it does all the math for me. Wouldn't that be really, oh, there it is. It actually did it. What did it do? Well, let's look at these formulas up here. So this is what I originally typed in. Let me go down one cell. So let me go down to 2005. And notice that Excel sort of guessed what I wanted. It guessed that maybe what I wanted to do was take the number in B12, which is the 2000, and that I wanted to add 5 to it, which I did. And it did it again down here in 2010. It took the number in B13, which is 2005, and added 5. So Excel will try to predict your formulas as you copy them down. Well, let's see if it does it again. So I want the next number here to be 5, and I want the next number here to be 10, and so on, but I don't want to do it myself, so I'm going to go ahead and take this formula that I had earlier, and I want to see if when I do this, it copies it down. Sure enough, there it is. It does the same thing again. This time it knows that last time you said, well, take the number in B11 and subtract 1995. So it figures what you want is take the number in B12 and subtract 1995. So it's always trying to predict. And so let's try this one more time and see what happens, because I wanted to predict, and I'm hoping I can do this one more time. Okay, now it didn't work. And in fact here, the second one, it says dividing by 0. Well, let's analyze these formulas and figure out why this happened. So notice that originally, the 5,000, we use this formula here at the right, the P equals C parentheses 1 plus R over N parentheses to the power of NT. And so in the formula here, inside the cell, the C6 represented the $5,000. The C7 represented the 3%. The C8 in both of these cases represents 360, and the C11 represents the time right here. Let me press enter. Let's look at the formula here. So what did Excel try to predict? Well, it says the C7, well, C7 this time is the 3%. Well, that's not what I want. I want C7 to be C. I want it to be C6 still. I didn't want it to move. The C8, for the R, it used C8, it used 360. And then for C9, it tried to use this, or so for the N, the thing that I'm dividing by, I try to use the element here in C9, and that's the issue. Excel knows you can't divide by 0. And then on the next one where it says value, the issue here is that when it tries to, if you look at the formula, it tries to use C8, C9, C10. C10 here, it's this word, these words. And so it says, well, I don't know what that is. I don't know how to compute that. And so we have to fix the formula a little bit so that we can copy and paste the correct way. So this is how we fix this. I want Excel to use C6 for all the formulas, for the rest of them. So I'm going to put dollar signs in front of the C and in front of the 6. That means I always want Excel to use this box right here. And in fact, for the R, I also wanted to use this C7. So I'm going to put dollar sign there and a dollar sign there. And then same thing for C8. And then same thing for C8 over here. What about C11? Well, C11 can change. I do want it to change according here. Next one I want it to be C12 and so on. So I'm not going to put the dollar signs. I'm going to press enter. And now I'm going to try to copy. And let's see what happens. Sure enough, it actually works well. And if you remember from the last time, we typed in 2045. And when we did the calculator, it did predict that it was going to be 22,000. Okay, so we've done this. Now what I'd like to be able to do is create a graph from this. So we did this once before. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the data here from 1995 to 2075. I'm going to press the command button on your Mac. If you're on a Windows, you would press the control button, but on a Mac, we'll press the command button, and I'm going to highlight this column. Before I do this, actually, let me stop there. I didn't copy the whole way through, so let me just copy this one. All right, so let's try this again. Highlight the 1995 to 2075, press the command button, and now highlight this on this side. Okay, now that I've done that, I want to create a table. If you remember, in Mac, you go to Charts. There is something like this in the PCs. I want to do a scatter plot, so I'm going to do a marked scatter, and there it is. Now, it's kind of in the way here, so I'm going to move this to the right a little bit so I can see it. And then I'm going to delete this series so I can make it slightly larger, and I'm actually going to see if I can make the table. So if you click on the table, if you click on one of these corners, it allows you to, it allows you to make it bigger. And so, like that. And so this is, if you notice, it looks sort of like an exponential function, which is something we haven't talked about yet, but we will pretty soon. So here's an exponential function, or at least we think it is. This sort of looks like an exponential function. And so what I'd like to do is show you a couple of things that we can do. Last time we did a trend line. This time I don't want to do a trend line. What I'd like to show you is that you can label and change labels. So for example, here, the y-axis, you can change what this goes up by. So for example, maybe we want to go up by $5,000. So I can change that, the major unit, to 5,000, and notice it does go up by 5,000. And maybe the years, I want to go up by 20 instead of 10. So let me change that to 20, and so on, and it works. Maybe I want to add a title. So if you notice here on chart layout, maybe I want a chart title, and I want it right above. So money made, investment. And maybe I want the axis. So maybe the horizontal axis is, I want it to say years, right? And of course, maybe I want the vertical axis to say money or amount. So vertical, here are 3 choices. You can play with all of them. I'm going to do the rotated title, where it says amount. Okay. And so now you can label your title however you want. And so these are different things you can do. Last time we clicked on the series, if you remember, on the dots themselves and added a trend line. There is a way to add a trend line right here. And so you could do linear, exponential, and so on. The other thing that we can do that I didn't show you is we can add more axes. So for example, actually no, sorry. I meant grid lines. I can add some grid lines. So I have the horizontal ones. Maybe I want some vertical ones so that it looks a little bit nicer. Maybe I want the vertical ones to be on the minor. Maybe I want to change, so the vertical ones, let's make them major, but let me double click on the axis and say, well, I want every 10 years, not every 5, not every 20 years. And so then it looks a little bit nicer there. So I want you to play with this, and on your assignment, you'll receive it in class, but you'll probably turn in something like this, and you'll also answer some questions on a worksheet sometime in the future. All right, have lots of fun on the next video. For your project, we'll actually add this to other types of data. I'll show you how to grab data from the internet when it comes to investing and how we can graph it and compare a couple of things. Okay. Have a good one.